Yep, she ain't leaking much. Look at that. Absolutely soaked. And all down here too. All of that is power steering fluid. There's our steering rack. Up in there. Across there. I'm about to rip that all out. WD-40 out, gonna spray those two. Those are the hydraulic lines. And then this is the teeth with the spline. I'm gonna spray that. Get a good coating on that so I can clean that and mark it.
If you take that off.
So that's been split for a while, eh?
I think so.
And so like lots and lots and lots of crap's gotten up in the seals inside.
Well, there's your teeth, so if you want to know what your teeth are like,
Wow.
you can get a photo.
Really? Wow. Yeah, wow.
I think that's all I'm about.
Oh yeah. Alright, what's going on, guys? It's a very scattered evening. It's about 11:30 at night time right now. I've got the lighting rig set up. The steering rack is so there's no seal here, here, in here, and around there. All the seals are busted. So I'm sending this away tomorrow to get reconditioned. And obviously once that's done and that comes back, I'll throw it back in and just see where we go from there. So I don't know if I'm going to do too much recording on it because it's just one of those things I want to get done. But there is some shop progress and some work happening here, guys. Heaps of stuff. It is the next morning and the steering rack is in the car, ready to be sent away to be reconditioned. But basically, if you haven't seen already, I'm getting my steering rack replaced. I was actually originally getting the original steering rack reconditioned because that was the cheapest option at that stage. The reconditioner guy found out that when he opened it up, the entire inside of the steering rack was all scored out due to a little rock that got in there and was like several rocks and like dirt and stuff like that since the driver's side steering rack boot was split. Either way, I spent up to about 11:30 last night, freezing cold, at night time, out there with the lights from the shop and like the lighting rig, just basically removing what I had to remove to get the steering rack out of the car. Now, to remove the steering rack, I basically had to drop the exhaust manifold, get a jack and like a bit of wood to hold it so it wouldn't fully go down, and the O2 sensor. I could not unplug that stupid O2 plug, so I just decided to leave it. I also had to loosen the passenger side bottom knuckle sway bar and link, so it allowed room for the tie rod to hook under when I can get it in. The steering rack's rooted, so I've rung around today different wreckers. It's a guessing game. They have a warranty and a refund policy in place, but it is a shit show and it is a hassle if I can't get it straight on the car. We're back to having my L's. So anyway, as it sits now with no rack in it, just sitting there. Does it come with the tie rod ends on them? Yes, it does. Does it come with the boots on it? Yes, it does. Does it come with the split pins or the collar pins for the tie rod ends? He doesn't know. I broke mine getting mine off because they're a pain. Probably just have to pick up a new set of collar pins, boots, some power steering fluid. So yeah, that should be fun. What is going on, guys? I have got the worst eyelash stuck behind the eye, scratching away there. It is awesome. Okay, well, basically, I have the new / second-hand steering rack. I picked it up for $155 at Sandgate Wreckers. It's only done 150,000 kilometers. It looks like it's in pretty good condition compared to my other one. But if you don't know what happened, a rock got inside the other steering rack and scored out the entire insides. Boot was split. And there's a couple of different things about it compared to my other one, but hopefully it all still fits. So here we have the new steering rack. The couple of things that are different to it is probably the tie rod ends. You've got the steering rack here, which goes down on some gears, which moves this thing inside. And basically this is the boot that covers the seals inside, protects it from dust. This rod here, that's called the inner tie rod. This, the tie rod end, bolts to the inner tie rod, creating this here. This is set to a length. That's your alignment. This then bolts to the knuckle, pulls the front of the wheel, whatever. I've already showed you guys this. But some different things are, that design is different. That's got like a U-bend in it. And my other ones were just dead straight. So that's a slight difference. On this new rack, I had to replace both of these. This one on this side and the other one on the other side. That's like a little sprung instead of like a metal clip. So processes of putting it back in is basically the same. Gonna fit it back all up in there around the sway bar. I might put 2 dummy bolts in to hold the rack in place. Then I'll get the splines of the it turns this part here. This is actually the part that bolts to the top of the rack. And the second thing that we're gonna do in the yellow cloth there, those are the 2 hydraulic lines. I just want to say one quick thing. I cannot thank my mum, Xander, and Justin, and my boss Trevor for the help that they've done with me through this process enough. She has worked her working day around taking me to school and work and picking up the rack. Thank you very much for that, Mum. I really do appreciate that because it's here right now. And thanks to my boss for hooking me up with the parts that I need and the guy to recondition it. Also, a big thanks to Justin for helping me. That assistance has been really good. And just the advice also on, you know, what I do with the rack here and there and stuff like that. So that's been really good. And then Xander, I'd like to thank you, bro, you know, for helping me drive down to the parts shop to get parts that I need. So that's a big thanks for that. Okay, so sadly the new steering rack, the brackets that hold it, they're not quite long enough to suit this diameter of steering rack. So we've got the round one, which is about like that, something like that, and we've got this other square one, which is here. So as it sits now, the rack is just sitting in there. It's still not done. Makes me pretty sad. It's been here for a week now, guys, and I've missed out on driving it. I work to that, I get my license, I have that ability, but then this happens. Already we've got steering wheel connection, hose connection, that's fine. It's clearance, that's fine, but it's just the diameter of the brackets. It just won't go on. Such a bitch. It lies here for another night, guys. Look at this, Justin out here helping me centering the rack. Thanks very much, man.
And you got 445.
On that side?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you're a mile out. What did I say? 468?
Yep, 468.
And 445.
I don't remember the second one.
Yeah, I said 445, which is what it is.
You said 468.
Yeah, 468 and 445. So 468 minus 445. 45, 55, 65, 25, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 23. Half of 23 is 13.
So 13 mil out.
Yeah, so it's got to go
half of 13.
This way, 13 mil.
Oh, okay. You have already worked out what it is.
Yep.
Okay, I thought you meant half of 13. Don't worry, dude. Cars can simply be a money pit. You know, like the pit where you put all your money in. Yeah, one of those. It's been a long, very agonising process, the steering rack replacement on the Subi. It's almost as if everything else that I was given was exactly the same with my old steering rack, but it's like as if this new steering rack is slightly bigger, and therefore, I actually don't think this rack is made for this car. It's just a little bit bigger in diameter. I mean, I got it for $155, I'm not complaining. Everything to do with installing this steering rack has now officially become custom, because no part that we've been given that's factory fits. We've had to make our own and work around what we have. So the brackets, you know, we've tried to use those with this rack because they fit around the rack, but they don't quite fit with the rubbers on there. So we've had to take the rubbers off, and we've got rubber mat, and we've wrapped the rubber mat around it, and so that's our bushing there. I would love to have used the proper factory bushings, but you know, if it doesn't bolt up with that, it doesn't work. There was a stage we were contemplating making our own spaces because of the size, and just, you know, we wasted about an hour and a half or something like that, maybe an hour last night. Me and Justin, seriously, we were a team, and we've been a team, me and him, doing this car. He's been out here after his work as a machinist all day, he's been out here until 11:30, midnight, 10:30, every night on a weekday to help get this thing done. So very thankful for him. Hold it and just be patient, and because I'm telling you, every single adjustment that needs to be made has been made. Like all along the steering column, when it goes down the column onto the uni joint which bolts to the top of the rack, we had to adjust that and then adjust the angle and like move the rack around, and then we're trying to basically get the steering rack like centered-ish before we bolt it on. So we're literally measuring like from one end to the center to the other end, and then like calculating it back to make sure if it's half, and then adjusting the tie rod ends to suit. And the tie rod ends that I got with the rack don't fit. They were too small for the knuckle that's on the wheel, so I had to put my old ones on. But that means that my castellated nuts, I'll throw a photo up now, which is the ones for the split pins. I've got to get in and get this done. I've got to attach the fluid lines to the rack, then bleed the rack. But it's been up on stands for a week and like 2 days now, so I'm absolutely pissed off about that. But I've saved a dramatic amount of money. So let's just see how we go with this morning. So as you can see, I've just set up the vacuum hose from each steering rack boot. That's a pretty clean install. All the bolts for it in general, they're all in. Like I said about the brackets, they don't fit, so I've used their custom rubber mat. That's fine. This has seriously been one of the biggest projects that I've ever done for this car. All of the power steering fluid lines had to come out from this, and I had to actually take it out and bend pipe to make it fit. Down here you've got the uni joint, and that swivels. The bolt on the end of that uni joint, that bolts to the steering rack, that was stripped out, so we had to tap and die a new bolt and the threads inside there. There's our two hydraulic lines. I had to bend them so that they fit. I had to swivel them around so they were within clearance. It's not exactly straight, you can see that clearly. It's slightly towed. It's going for an alignment tomorrow morning, so just add that to the list, but more money down the drain. This is simply the thing about buying an older style car. It takes a little bit more to get it running, but once you do, it comes with its privileges. Manual transmission, cable with hydraulic assist clutch, cable accelerator, brake booster, mechanical handbrake. And some of the car enthusiasts now, you find more of what you're after for a car enthusiast, which is something more mechanical. It is Saturday morning now. It's about 9 o'clock. This morning I'm down here at Mainstream Automotive at Daybra. It's in there now. The idea of this morning is to align the car. I'd like to see how far out I am. Boys down at Mainstream Automotive hooking me up. The car is fine. I was about 7mm out of alignment. I have just officially replaced the steering rack in the Subaru, and I feel very good about that. End verdict is it's got a very slow coolant leak. It's coming from the thermostat housing, so I need to replace the thermostat gasket, put new coolant in it. Front left CV boot, that's loose, and so there's grease coming out and it's kicking up in the tunnel. It's really gay. So I need to just take the boot off, clean it, put a new metal zip tie on there with a special tool for that, and just tighten it right up so it doesn't. But I hope it's not the actual CV joint. I don't know when I'll do the thermostat, because it takes about 2 weeks, so it gives me time. I need a break. Rack number 2 is now on its way to reconditioning. Okay guys, I don't know exactly where I'm up to with the video, but I'm just going to go along with it. But pretty much I'm putting in my refurbished second-hand steering rack, which I found out it's actually out of a Subaru Leone. You can make the adjustments to make it fit. Interesting to note. Fully resprayed and everything. Okay, so I've basically got the steering rack in. Everything is bolted up. The fluid, that hasn't gone in yet. The fluid lines, they're in. I've got the tie rod ends, they're on, and they're bolted to the knuckle. is pretty damn straight, to be honest, so that'll suit me till I get down to the alignment shop. All the brackets are done up nice and tight, the sway bar end length's done up. It's like a skid plate slash catch pan thing. I've got to put that one back on, fill it up with fluid. I've got to bleed it again, so I got to like disconnect the coil pack and run the pump. So it's Thursday night, it's 9:15, and tomorrow I'm going to ring around, see if I can get an alignment done either tomorrow afternoon or first thing Saturday, just like I did a week ago. Just a quick little update here, guys. I know the video is pretty scattered, but anyway, I'll just continue on. Today, it's Sunday night right now. Today, I've been a little bit chilled out. I got up late. I did like one thing to the car, and then that's it for the whole day, pretty much. So for 2 weeks. So Monday night, I'd do something, through to Friday night, I'd be doing something on the car. After putting the rack in and everything like that, filled it all up with fluid. I've bled it properly. Alright, guys, so a couple of steps to how you bleed your power steering rack in the Subaru. Step 1, make sure that all of the hydraulic lines to the actual steering rack are nice and tight and that they're not going to leak. You can feel they're not going to leak at all. Step 2 is to get some power steering fluid or whatever fluid that your car checks. Check the manual, go to parts stores, they'll tell you, or ring the manufacturers, they'll tell you, like Subaru or whatever. But normally just power steering fluid is fine, or normally it's automatic transmission fluid or Dextron 3 or ATF. Usually it's power steering fluid because it's a power steering rack, but some companies, manufacturers, they use different fluids for whatever reason. But you want to fill up the power steering reservoir, which is the box that holds the fluid. Fill that up to a good mark. Obviously don't go past the max level, don't overfill it, because when you're bleeding it, some of the air bubbles can lip up. Basically, fill that to a mark that you can go off. It might be a scratch, it might be a bit of tape that you put there just to go up to, and then basically go from that. Once you've got the fluid in there to that level that you've set, step 3 is to get into the car. Put your key in, turn it on AC so that the steering lock doesn't occur. And then you want to just get the steering wheel and you want to go 5 times left and 5 times right with a slow pace. Backwards and forwards. And what this is doing is basically bleeding out the air inside the steering rack itself. Do it like 5 left, 5 right, so it's about 10 turns in total. Then you get out of the car, you check the power steering reservoir. And what you're looking for is you're looking for the level of fluid and the bubbles inside. And if there's little bubbles on top, that's normal, but you're looking for like big air bubbles and pockets on the top. That means there's more air in it. You've got to keep doing that same process. The level of fluid, obviously if it ever drops, just top it back up to your little mark. If it's just dropped a little bit, that's meant to happen. But if it doesn't, still that's the same story, it's not a big issue. If there's air bubbles in there, go back and keep doing that same process until you don't see big bubbles on top. And then you keep the fluid at that level. Now, 4th step is to disable your car from starting in any sort of way. So you basically want to disconnect something that will create the car to start. So pretty much disconnect something like a fuel pump relay. No, not relay, fuse. And then the car won't provide fuel for the engine and it won't start. Or you could do something a lot easier, pretty much do what I did, which is on the Subaru, the ignition coil leads, basically those are directly on top. So you can just unplug the 4 leads from the coil pack. That won't start. Well, it'll turn over, which is what you want, like it won't actually start. Now why you want to do this is it's part of step 4 with the power steering pump. You want to get the pump to pump the fluid up and get rid of all the air inside the pump. You want to disable the car from starting, put your key in, prime, and then you want to crank so like, let it sit, let it sit, and then do it again, and that's turning the pump over, and that brings up all the air and brings the fluid into the pump, which goes through the lines like that. So you're just doing that, then check the reservoir, and if it's dropped dramatically, fill it back up, go back inside there, do your steering wheel again, crank it again, do that same process until the fluid level no longer drops. Once the fluid level remains the same, plug your wires back in or your fuel pump relay, turn it over. Like actually start the engine, make sure it's in neutral and stuff, or park, but make sure, you actually want to turn the engine over, let it run, if it's not dropping, that's what it should be doing. The steering rack's fully bled, it's in there, ready to go. So I've got a wheel alignment booked for Tuesday morning, and I've got a tie rod end coming in on Monday afternoon. I'm going to get that done. Hopefully, I'm praying. E3414 looks brand new. Brand new castle nut, new boot, new thingos. Like it's brand new. Comes with a grease port and a new split pin. That's going to be awesome. Versus the old one. Old castle nut, old split pin. That joint is shot. So here I'm just putting on a layer of rust preventative, and then here is another shot of it installed with grease and ready to go. After this, I then sent the car away to be aligned, and now it's running fine since it's reconditioning, but I've definitely learnt a lesson about doing this steering rack swap, and that is that you just need to take your time, be patient, and be smart financially with what you decide to do. And any mechanical job is doable, pretty much. So, but that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's very mechanical and methodical, but apart from that, I'll see you all in the next one. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.